It is Sunday, the 15th of October, 2017. I'm in front of the Unitarian Church of Montreal. I'm looking at its wayside pulpit, which until recently displayed the Unitarian Church of Montreal's mission statement. I dare say the Unitarian Church of Montreal's quite laughable mission statement, because the mission statement in question contained zero moral and ethical content. It was just a bunch of blather that can be interpreted obviously in a very positive way, which they wanted it to be interpreted, but it can be also interpreted in a very negative manner. The mission statement went something like this. Our spiritual community welcomes, nurtures, inspires, challenges, and one or two other things like that. And then it went on to say, we take action in the world. Now, I don't know about you, but you may have noticed that it doesn't say what the spiritual community, known as the Unitarian Church of Montreal, actually welcomes. It doesn't say what the Unitarian Church of Montreal actually nurtures. Doesn't say what the Unitarian Church of Montreal actually inspires. It doesn't say what the Unitarian Church of Montreal challenges. And all of those things can be interpreted in a very negative manner. For instance, the Unitarian Church of Montreal welcomed Reverend Ray Drennan to be its new full-time minister in the wake of the retirement of Reverend Charles Edis. And Reverend Ray Drennan was an intolerant and abusive anti-religious bigot who not only attacked my theistic religious beliefs and practices, but also trashed the Roman Catholic state funeral of Pierre Elliott Trudeau on October 9th of 2010. And no doubt in other ways Ray Drennan displayed his anti-religious intolerance and bigotry. As far as the offensive attack on Pierre Elliott Trudeau's Roman Catholic state funeral that was published in the Montreal Gazette on October 9th of 2000, the public, a good number of people, wrote letters to the editor condemning Reverend Ray Drennan's anti-religious intolerance and bigotry. I wrote a letter myself, a fairly lengthy one, and one that I knew that was heading more towards being an opinion piece, which Reverend Ray Drennan's article was. But I knew it could be edited down to a shorter length and, published as a letter to the editor. So, when after a few days I, hadn't heard anything from the Gazette, hadn't seen it published, I called the letters editor of the Gazette, whose name escapes me at the moment, but I think I might be able to remember it at some point. And, when I asked him, if he had seen my letter to the editor about Reverend Ray Drennan's intolerance and bigotry and so on, his first words out of his mouth were, "You've got competition, Mr. Edgar." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And he came back with, well, a ballpark figure of around 50 people have all written letters to the editor condemning Reverend Ray Drennan's anti-religious intolerance and bigotry. And not a single, that's it. He said all of them were condemning. In other words, there was not a single letter to the editor that supported Reverend Ray Drennan's attack on Pierre Elliott Trudeau's Roman Catholic state funeral. Essentially, all 50 or more, or possibly a little bit less, letters written by people all condemned Reverend Ray Drennan's anti-Catholic and more broadly anti-religious intolerance and bigotry, as it was published in his appropriately titled Wrong Message opinion editorial. Indeed, it's very opinionated opinion editorial. So my letter was never actually published, but the Gazette a few days later, after I called them, published 5 representative letters from 5 different people, all of whom condemned Reverend Ray Drennan's anti-religious intolerance and bigotry. I can't remember exactly what date those letters were published on, but it was sometime later. It was like a week or even a week and a half or so after October 9th. So, you know, right around this time, 17 years ago in 2000, no less than 5 letters to the editor, representative of, you know, 10 times as many letters to the editor, were published in the Gazette, all of them condemning Reverend Ray Drennan's anti-religious intolerance and bigotry. And I should add that one other thing that the Gazette's letters editor told me when I called him was that this huge amount of, you know, condemnatory, if that's a word, letters to the editor was the largest number of such, you know, negative letters to the editor that the Gazette had received since it had reported on the fact that convicted sex killer, I guess maybe Karla Homolka wasn't actually convicted as a murderer, although she almost certainly was, certainly involved in murder, certainly an accessory to murder, and aiding and abetting murder. Anyway, basically a similar number of people, or possibly even more, were very unhappy about the fact that Karla Homolka, you know, had a birthday party in prison, and that the Gazette reported this, you know, happy event in Karla Homolka's life. So there's a, you know, funny, interesting little connection between Reverend Ray Drennan and Karla Homolka. There's also a little connection between Montreal Unitarian Sue Montgomery and Karla Homolka as well. It seems Montreal Unitarian Sue Montgomery, who got some words for you, to look at and read and pay attention to.
Good morning, Robin.
Yeah, that's it. Ignore it as usual. Ignore your religion's serious clergy abuse problem. Just be part of the willful ignorance and psychological denial, Mark. So that's Mark Banty. Sorry, Mark Abley. I get Mark Abley confused with... I get Mark Abley confused with Mark Banty by name sometimes. Hi there. It's always a glorious day when I'm accused of blasphemy by Unitarians. What?
You did?
Not the local church. Oh. I thought you knew this. The head office in Boston, like it's basically an American-based church, Unitarian Universalism. Yeah. This goes back to 2012. On Friday, June 1st of 2012, I opened my email inbox, and there's an email from Stikeman Elliott Barristers and Solicitors. It's a big corporate law firm.
Oh yeah, you told me that.
Yeah. So in it, they're accusing me, as an exact quote, they said, "Your unfounded and vicious allegations to the effect that ministers of the association engage in such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape are defamatory." And then went on to say that they were so defamatory that they constitute the criminal act of blasphemous libel, which is section 296 of the Canadian Criminal Code, or was. Yeah, okay. So in the 21st century, Unitarians, and more specifically atheist Unitarians, because the ones who were directly behind that were clearly atheists, were accusing me of violating Canada's blasphemy law and legal bullying intended to hide pedophilia and rape. That's a huge honor and privilege.
There's been no recent development though, huh? I mean,
well, there won't be a recent development over that because I totally blew them out of the water. I just humiliated the lawyer and the leadership of the church in my responses.
So they tried to send you an intimidating...
Exactly. It was legal bullying. It was like, you know, basically an attempt to intimidate me into removing blog posts that told the truth about these people. And of course, they didn't pursue it. They might have wanted to pursue it. You know, it might not have been a complete bluff, but it was like so false that there was no hope that they would win, and so they didn't pursue it. There's actually some other accusations that they didn't pursue as well.
But Islington in London.
Right.
who began to protest against the gentrification of Islington.
Right.
Which is where the word originated.
Oh, really? Okay. I didn't know that,
And
but I know about Islington. There's a Unitarian church in Islington.
Well, the developers took him to court.
Right. Oh, this happens all the time, but keep going. Yeah.
And he lost. And
he lost? Oh, shit.
And he appealed.
Oh, okay, appealed, okay.
And it went all the way up to the High Court.
Right.
And he lost, and he
Oh,
appealed.
dear.
He appealed to the House of Lords, and he won.
Oh, excellent, excellent.
And so now you're able to demonstrate as long as you stay on the sidewalk in the UK.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's been a Canadian test case, but I see.
Well,
I see
actually, there has.
You stay on the sidewalk.
Yeah, wait, no, here. Going back to 2000.
Yeah.
On December 4th of 2000, I was protesting outside the church. SPVM police car pulls up. Officer gets out, says, "You're under arrest." Like, he didn't, like, there was no ifs, ands, or buts. I'm here to arrest you, and you're under arrest. Like, it was no negotiation involved. He had been sent there to arrest me. And I said, "What for?" He says, "Public nuisance." And I go, like, "Public nuisance? What public nuisance? I'm protesting, you know?"
Yeah.
And I don't think he even knew the full details.
He made a mistake.
He didn't make a mistake. He was ordered. Someone higher than him made a mistake. He didn't just come on. No, he was ordered to do this, I'm sure. This came from higher levels. Jeremy Searle, by the way, pressured the police to arrest me. He was one of the prosecution witnesses when it went to court, because it did actually go to court. So when I finally got what exactly they were accusing me of, it was violating Section 176.3 of the Canadian Criminal Code, which prohibits disrupting the order and solemnity of religious services. So I'm outside the church. As you know, they can barely even see me from inside the church. I'm not really audible because I'm not making noise to begin with, and even if I was, it's pretty soundproof. But they're trying to use this law, which prohibits disrupting the order and solemnity of church services, to shut down my protest.
What a waste of money.
Well, no, a waste of taxpayers' money. They probably paid peanuts. That's why they use the criminal justice system, because it doesn't cost them a fucking dime. Excuse me. No, but seriously, you know, if you want to go with the civil route, you're going to shell out money for lawyers. They use the criminal justice system, first of all, because you look worse if you're convicted, and you might even go to jail. I mean, both of those charges carry a 2-year jail term if you're convicted, not to mention getting a criminal record. So this was like such bullshit that I defended myself. Wow. Like, I didn't even bother. I said, you know what? This is such complete bullshit. And they have to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt that I don't think they're going to be able to. I think I can at least introduce some reasonable doubt. So I'm going to have fun representing myself. If I lose, I'll get a lawyer for an appeal, but I'm not going to get a lawyer first off. So I didn't spend a dime on lawyers either. I spent some time and research and a little bit of money on photocopies and stuff, but that's it. So I defended myself in court very successfully. I had a good judge. That makes the difference sometimes. You have a good judge or a bad judge. Well, this guy was good. He respected my rights.
And the law is the law. Like, if we allow
but the law can be, you know, it can be misapplied. It can be, you know, I've had bad results too.
Freedom of speech and the right to protest is a really important.
Of course, and that's why I'm still here. They're like, they're literally accusing me of blasphemy in the 21st century.
Is that on their property, or is that on?
No, we've had nice discussions with the SPVM about this. You know, 3 feet back from the sidewalk is city property. You know, cops have come and, you know, and as a church, you know, they make this claim: this is our property. You can't have it. You know, and we've had arguments. In fact, at one point, going back to I think 2005, one arrogant and, you know, overly authoritarian SPVM cop said that if I did not remove my picket signs, that he was going to grab them himself and put them in the garbage, the poubelle. There was, or I think it still is, poubelle of it.
Did you film him doing it?
Unfortunately, at the time, no. Okay. This is 2005. I wasn't video capable at that point. I said, if you do that, I'm going to file a complaint against you. He didn't care, and what he did, and his partner, they gathered up all of my picket signs. They did not put them in the garbage. They put them in the trunk of a police car, and they drove off. Oh, and they gave me a ticket. They gave me a ticket for some bylaw, $100 ticket. And when I checked into it, the law had been abrogated. So they gave me a ticket for a law that had been abrogated. But here's the thing. Here's how they play games. So I brought this to the attention of station, I think it was station 11 at the time. They suspended the ticket. So I assumed, okay, it's over. No. Without my knowledge, sometime later, they reinstated it.
So you had to go back and fight it again?
Yeah, so I went to court, and this is where you get a bad judge. I went to court, and I said, look, you know, it's like, I'm just protesting, you know, and what they were accusing me of was distributing pamphlets I'm not distributing pamphlets. I got some pickets. I'm not like handing out pamphlets. And anyway, that law had been abrogated. The original one had been abrogated. Yeah, that was the original one. It would have been abrogated because of Charter Rights and Freedoms, you know, that you can't stop people from distributing pamphlets. But then they changed it. It was tweaked slightly along the same lines. Oh, they just went by. I don't know if they were having a... They haven't bothered me for quite a while.
Yeah, I saw them go by, yeah.
You know, and it's probably just routine. It might be keeping an eye on me, but they tend not to bother me anymore because I've like nailed them so many times.
Don't bother.
Yeah. Oh, I've stood up in Montreal City Council meetings and talked about this stuff.
This is in Montreal here, yeah. Okay.
This is actually the western edge of NDG, so yeah, technically Montreal. Oh, and here's a good thing. Montreal Unitarian Sue Montgomery is running for mayor of Côte-des-Neiges.
Oh,
she's totally complicit in all this stuff. Catch you later. Oh, and she's suing me for libel for saying that. No, she's threatening to it's not going to happen. So, well, that was a nice conversation. Glad to see it was all recorded. And the guy probably knows it was recorded because he's spoken with me before. He knows I keep my camera running. And I'm glad to see that he's clearly supportive on the free speech front. Oh, here's another person who buries her head in the sand about clergy sex abuse in the Unitarian Church and cover-up and denial thereof by Unitarian Universal Association. Church is full of them, actually. I mean, pretty well every single Montreal Unitarian is in deep psychological denial and wallowing in willful ignorance about all of the issues I'm protesting against, because they've never responsibly addressed any of the issues that I'm protesting against. But one of the issues that I'm protesting against, as we just heard, is the fact, the readily provable fact, that Unitarian Universalists, more specifically top-level officers of the Unitarian Universalist Association in Boston, which represents Unitarian Universalism, certainly in the United States, I'd say more generally in North America, and even internationally,